Guys, we gotta talk about this. Hearthstone is more racist than ever. Which way, Western man? Hearthstone is more racist than ever, or Bootstar? I want to go on a boat trip today. Interesting. Holding my sister's hand. This is the next chapter. I think since we're starting at 3, we should be able to get to like chapter 9. I'm in so much pain. I'm in like a lot of achy pain right now. I've been increasing my output physically because I've been increasing my input physically. I've been eating more. I have like a lot of energy, and I feel like a little animal, and I just want to like fucking jump around and do like backflips off my bed or something. But um if I do that, I might hurt myself. And I can almost guarantee that if I try to do a backflip onto my bed, which is way safer, um, I will definitely make a hole in the wall, and my life will basically be over because my parents spent like $20,000 like redoing like everything in the house. Um, and that was inheritance money, so it's not coming back. Let's see. So here we go. Holding my sister's hand. Feminist solidarity. Who amongst you is ready for feminist solidarity? I would say anyone, anyone in this room can be ready for feminist solidarity. You are ready. Say it yourself. You are ready. Get out there, join a paramilitary corps, and take over the third world. Okay, no, we're doing bell hooks today. Holding my sister's hand, feminist solidarity. We have an Audre Lorde quote. I like Audre Lorde because Audre Lorde, Audre Lorde, Audre Lorde is kind of gay like me, so I get that. I understand. They say V Bush the Beard Man Audre Lorde, and I say ME. Okay. Feminism must be on the cutting edge of real social change if it is if it is to survive as a movement in any particular country. That's Audre Lorde in a burst of light. We are the victims of our history and our present. They place too many obstacles in the way of love, and we cannot enjoy even our differences in peace. Amaatu Aido in Our Sister Killjoy. Our Sister Killjoy. It kills sisters happily. Second one's kind of existential. Damn. I like it though because it feels true. Feels true to a guy like me. Grew up watching a lot of Cartoon Network. I'll see Ed, Ed and Eddie. Really makes you think. Why are Ed, Ed and Eddie in a constant state of abandonment? Okay. All right. Anyways. Oh, stretch. Coming at you at the speed of sound in a life form that makes it to your cranium. All right. Patriarchal perspectives on race relations have traditionally evoked the image of black men gaining the freedom to be sexual with white women. Yeah, where they at though? As the personal relationship which best exemplifies the connection between public struggle for racial equality and the private politics of racial intimacy. Racist fears that socially sanctioned romantic relationships between black men and white women would dismantle the white patriarchal family structure historically heightened the sense of taboo, even as individuals chose to transgress boundaries. It's a little outrageous to me that this is the focus, because doesn't that just criminalize black men? Doesn't that just make them like the subject of this like enforcement apparatus, this extrajudicial enforcement apparatus that seeks to execute them? They'll get lynched. If we think like this, they'll get lynched. Butt sex between black men and white women, even when legally sanctioned through marriage, did not have the feared impact. Well, no, because I can't imagine that anyone was talking about that to prognosticate a future based on their fears. How often does one's fears come to pass in such a civil sort of hypothetical situation? No one's saying like, "Hey man, what if you had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? What if you ate a peanut butter and jelly sandwich?" And someone was like, well, the fucking peanut farmers are gonna come stab me in the stomach. What do you mean? It's gonna destroy society. I'm gonna take a bite of that, and they're gonna have to make so many peanuts that I literally would be draining the earth of its precious soil. See, I'm not good at this. Okay, I'm not. That's not on the top of my head. I'll tell you that much. It's strange. It's a strange focus. It did not fundamentally threaten white patriarchy. That's interesting. It did not further the struggle to end racism. Okay. There's a lot to unpack there. White patriarchy. White patriarchy is the intersection of white identity and traditionalist identity and their associated values and categories. White patriarchy doesn't necessarily exist in an elemental form. It's like necessarily the subjective modulation of the, I don't know, the way it was described to me, it's the subjective modulation of the salience of either identity and their authority in a given situation. So white patriarchy isn't like a building you can burn down. I don't know, like, you know what I mean? Like, if I'm white and I'm a patriarch, sometimes I'm just gonna have to, come down to the fact that I'm amongst white patriarchs, and then my whiteness isn't what's prevalent here. It's, the size of my plot, or, my denomination, or, my propensity to send my children to school or whatever. The politics change. The politics that govern love and the politics that govern the economy very often are only tangentially related because the economy can really only embody love in the form of like this image. If you're producing something and it's like, a wedding ring, it's you're producing wedding bands. You're selling bouquets. You're selling Valentine's Day chocolates. Even you're not two people being in love and carrying this out. You're this like economic process that understands society, um sort of independent of your own actions. Selling chocolates isn't gonna, change everything about trust and solidarity, or even sexuality necessarily. um it's the conversations that people have about it, uh and what they put into action. Now that's not to say that there are powers out there that don't have a hand in love and the economy, right? Of course, there are people who see the value in playing both sides, but that's separate from the thing itself, right? So we're understanding our own impotency when we're here experiencing the love and the economy, for example. We're here as a society, but there's a part of our society that exists up here that has a hand in either one of these things that we're completely cut off from. So it's very interesting. It's a provocative image because what it does is it makes salient um this section of society up here that would be affected, that isn't so easy to name. We can say business owners, but that encompasses both halves. We can say executives, and I think we're getting towards the sort of language that we're trying to describe. But if we go into the past, suddenly the word executive doesn't mean the same thing anymore. So what are you really talking about? Whatever really happened? Why would you ever attribute having a hand in both of these things to anything happening down here if these people are the only ones reacting, right? So there is a modicum of self-control that can be exercised in this way, but you have to understand is that as long as these people are invisible in this sort of day-to-day life, um there are people who are going to like lose this level of self-control, and isn't that concerning? um let's say it's like something different, and it's like school and prison. It's school, prison, and work. All right, and there are people who have their hands in prison and work, and there are people who have their hands in school and work, and maybe even there's people who have their hands in school and prison. But I'd be surprised if anyone were ever to draw that direct connection. What I'd like to believe is that there are people who are into prison, people who are into school because they've specialized, right? And that these people talk at some point. And I'm supposed to believe that above them, there is no social contract that I am not held to. I want to believe that these people talking about their school and their prison, or their hold on. I want to believe that these people talking about their school and their prison, kind of messed it up there for a second, um, that they belong to this social contract, right? That is above them. I want to believe that I'm on this same level here in terms of this social contract, and that I have some amount of power over school or prison because I have the same amount of power over this social contract, right? So what's the truth? It did not fundamentally threaten white patriarchy. It did not further the struggle to end racism. Making heterosexual sexual experience, particularly the issue of black men gaining access to the bodies of white women, the quintessential expression of racial liberation, deflected attention away from the significance of social relations between white and black women, and of the ways this contract determines and affects race relation. This is coming from a personal place. Because how do we understand any of this? How do we understand any of this? How do we understand any of this? We understand it as something that's incredibly subjective, right? We understand it mostly holistically, which is to say, holistic in this situation refers to how we understand this thing by comparison. We understand life because it's different from ourselves. We understand other people because they're different from ourselves and because they're different from other people, right? That makes sense. So when Bell Hooks is focusing on white and black women, she's digging something up. She's saying that one, from their lived experience, without being told that what they live is a lie, can become aware of their own volition, of their own impotency, of their own inability to affect these things that affect them. And they will form their own understanding of these agreements. And more often than not, their understanding and your understanding will allow you to develop some kind of agreement to synthesize ideas, to gain knowledge communally. Because once you gain knowledge communally, you're on the same page. But without this process of synthesis, and without people's own self-driven understanding of the world informing the information that they contribute to the synthesis, the combination, the linking, the compromise, the agreements, the trust built on this information, communal learning becomes fractured, which is obviously a problem because we've already decided, please don't take this from me, because we live in a democracy. Because over the course of thousands of years, people have figured that the best way to live amongst each other is to make decisions together. Okay, no, I'm not all on it. I'm not all on Thomas Paine. I'm not all on Montesquieu or whatever. Okay? But come on, man. It's what I have in front of me. The institutions, democratic institutions, are so much further elaborated upon because they imply equality. If people stop valuing equality and start acting on that, there's gonna be bedlam. We're gonna go crazy. We're gonna be wandering tribes of one, armed with guns and knives. So you have to wonder, if I have this ability to have self-control, if I'm aware in this, you know, who's entitled to some kind of compensation for being exiled to this tribe of one? Well, who says it's exiling? You know, who says it's not inherent to the human condition? These are the things that you have to be ready to rebut. These are the kinds of things that you have to be ready to press back against. These are the big questions here. You know? Because as long as people play this identity politics game, it's not gonna make sense. One has to be aware that above people, above identity, there is some sort of agreement between people. Me personally, I think my explanation isn't just something that makes sense and sounds nice. It's based on agreements that have been made in the past. The social contract, like oh my god, and here we go. Here's that confusing language again. It's either contractualism or contractarianism, which is like, why did they name it that? Why did they name it like the same thing if they mean different things? These are things that are built into the Constitution. These are things that other countries saw in the American Constitution and thought, well, we should have our own Constitution based on that because that really worked. These are things we learned in school. These are things that we experience in our day-to-day lives, and understanding what you're entitled to according to these philosophies should be a guiding principle for society to reform. If people form a consensus, that's more powerful, more valuable than all of the computing power in the world. Our human behavior, our preferences, what we believe, and what we're willing to express, what we vote for, what we choose, all of these things are to say it's what we agree upon. Consensus is the most valuable thing on earth. So if people can form a consensus on their own, they just got the 5-finger discount. You're saving more money. You're saving billions. You are saving billions of dollars. Hundreds of billions of dollars. Even Elon Musk is a trillionaire. You're saving close to $1 trillion. If we add up all the what do they call it? Like, if we add up every valuation of every successful data-driven tech company right now, you're saving that much money because you've gone beyond these predictions, and you've managed to take back your free will. So it's interesting. So she's gonna get into it. These are the kinds of things that will save you in a crisis, because if you're alone, chances are you're not going to figure out like half of it. Like if you're alone, like really alone, and you're being like disenfranchised and ostracized from society in a big way, the kind of way that makes people go crazy, this is the kind of thing that can pull you out of it. Is like knowing that people could be out there, So, I mean, this is important. It's an important book because it puts into words what we feel and what we act upon, what we recognize but don't necessarily feel the texture of. We don't see how these things interact and change. It's this opaqueness that drives us insane. And you have to be ready to defend yourself. So yeah, I believe in my system. I believe in what I say. That's why I'm saying it. That's not necessarily true all the time, which is why, I'm like this on like the value of these chapters, but at least I'll get the references. At least I'll know what other people are talking about, because people have said enough times that bell hooks is on it. Enough people have said bell hooks is good, that if I know this, I can pull that out of me in lieu of talking about this, right? Which is like, someone's like, well, why is that crazy guy my fault? I can say so much more about it. I can say so much more about it if they're willing to understand this. So this is my demographic research. I'm looking for people who are into this. We're making references to this. Maybe if they don't even know it. And of the ways this contact determines and affects race relations. we'll see. She'll make some statements. She'll make salient some structures of power that change our lives. You'll become a more sensitive person for knowing what this person goes through, at least, because maybe you'll know how they're different. Sorry, I'm just like, I'm achy. I feel it going like from like my ring finger, from my like ring finger like here. Ugh. I just want to. Where, where is it? Okay. As relations, as a teenager in the late '60s. Where's my eye tracker? We're back. All right, cool. Is it hot in here? Or is it just me? You know what? Would you guys hate it if I turned up the fan in here? I don't think you'll hear it. But I got a fan. All right. It doesn't look like my mic's picking that up too badly. You might hear it in the background, but not. It shouldn't make too much noise while it's idling. Okay, that feels a lot better. My hair is so fluffy today. Damn. I'm like, yeah, we fluffing out. All right. Um, I see it. Probably like the fifth or sixth time my eyes have been like sent to that word. As a teenager in the late 60s, identity, place, living in a racially segregated southern town, I knew that black men who desired intimacy with white women and vice versa forged bonds. I knew of no intimacy, no deep closeness, no friendship between black and white women. Though never discussed, it was evident in daily life that definite barriers separated the two groups, making close friendship impossible. Sorry, I'm like, just like achy. Oh, one of these days we'll have a stream where I stretch or something beforehand, and I'll actually have like a handkerchief like for my nose. Um, but not today. Not today. Uh, maybe. It's a big maybe. What's it? Ugh, I'm like aching, dude. Though never discussed, it was evident in daily life that definite barriers separated the groups, making close friendship impossible. Oh, I thought they were talking. No. Okay, wait, what? Okay. Black men and white women forged bond, but black and white women had no friendship. Okay, I see. I see. We're cutting it up. We're doing the psychological work of I don't know. I don't know a lot about psychology, but I know that we're like looking at this according to like social categories and assigning them rules, observing these rules and assigning them some sort of explanation. Um if you're a black man and you meet a woman, there's a chance you can forge a bond. If you are a white woman and uh there is a black woman and or if there's a white woman and you're a black woman, there's no chance you'll ever be friends or close or anything like that. Um, oh, fuck. For some reason, it's just something you observe. Oh, something that makes you believe in the success or failure of a relationship between the two of you. Sounds like something a teenager would say. It's hot. It's fun. Makes you feel like you know what's going on. Ooh. The point of contact between black women and white women was one of servant served, a hierarchical power-based relationship unmediated by sexual desire. Black black women were the servants and white women were the served. In those days, a poor sorry, I feel like I'm cooking. Oh my god. Oh, being assaulted. It's like achy all over my body. I think the point is just to make me stop reading or something. I need to try something new. I need to relax. I need to like not care, but also be on point and focus. Very interesting though. Like in her mind, she's like the only person who gets excluded from anything. Like as a teenager, like as like this black teenager in this suddenly desegregated school system. She's like, man, fuck me. Nothing good ever happens. What the fuck? I am the fucking maid. That's the first time I've seen that word. Alright, I'm just in so much pain right now. God, I want to scream. In those days, a poor white woman who might never be in a position to hire a black woman would still, in all her encounters with black women, assert a dominating presence, ensuring that contact between the two groups should always place white in a position over power of in a position of power over black. The servant-served relationship was established in domestic space, in the household, within a context of familiarity and commonality. The belief that it was the female's role to tend the home was shared by white and black women. I was going to get to that, but okay. She's talking about her psychological relationships between what she's feeling, where she is, and how she believes things should play out. You know, sometimes when I'm lost in thought and I'm feeling really fucked up and confused about, differences between me and others, right? My mind goes to this place, and it's this inherent belief that someone controls me. It's this inherent belief that someone controls me that is deeply ingrained within so many of my understandings of the situations I find myself in, right? So because I believe in this history of power, I believe that my role is defined by what is desired of that power. I truly believe that if I did this experiment, if I believed that someone wanted me to be a peaceful person, I understood how peace was carried out, down to the call outs and organizational processes, that I would find myself within that process, because it would be, to me, something as real and as potent as what I've experienced growing up in this country. It comes down to the point where at times I believe that my belief in anonymous trust, something that could easily be attributed to the monetary system, interdependency in the economy, or even just, mythiopia, evolutionary advantages of the oral tradition and storytelling as they relate to the extended period of time between parent and offspring that is present in so many ape and Homo sapien, Homo like species, like human species. My best attempt, right? But my brain goes to this place where I believe that if I'm ever down and out, the one thing I can always do is join the military, right? Where would I be? So much money goes into the military, so much money goes into propaganda for the military. So why shouldn't I believe that because of my attachment to material things, that I'm not somehow psychologically primed to pursue one action over the other with more vim and vigor, with a deeper memory, feeling as though I'm more involved in the processes and history of that thing. Who's to say that I'm not just supposed to be on some fucking microphone talking to people the whole time, right? Oh, I'm good at math. They must have thought I was going to be a sniper in 2018. Oh, I flew a drone once in a building and I got a rush. I'm 5'5". Who's to say, I'm not supposed to be in some little bunker somewhere, flipping out. Like getting all hyped up. This is the kind of thinking where you believe that, like, in if everything fails in this sort of system that you can become someone else's servant, right? Like at the root of all these beliefs is that. And it's the type of belief that I think makes reform difficult. I don't think that it's ever hard to get people to cooperate with you as long as you're trying to help them. That's a very long discussion that I'd like to gloss over to say, I think the education crisis contributes to how we view politics and what we think will work in policy. If people are generally uninvolved, if people generally don't read, if people generally lend themselves to not being leaders but to being followers, if people generally lend themselves to being non-participatory, to looking for shortcuts, if people lend themselves to a type of specialization in which they believe that they are inherently well suited for a certain type of work, and that work isn't politics, I think as long as this is what we believe, which I don't think is an inherent biological truth by any means, as long as this is what we believe, you can expect liberalism. You can expect people to create these categories that are enforced by a minority of people, that are reviewed by a minority of people, and carried out by a minority of people who are then entitled to surplus, right? You can expect less communitarianism, because people are not engaged enough in their own lives that they can be entirely truthful. You know, not honest. They can be completely honest, but that doesn't mean that their honesty is completely truthful, right? Because they can be wrong, or they can be uninformed. Some kind of misunderstanding can take place that makes it hard to share. That makes it hard to just give people things and expect them to go off and grow their lives out of these things, right? I think it makes it hard for people to imagine that regulatory issues can be addressed by, say, emergency voting and special voting and councils formed from the affected communities themselves that are entitled to some amount of resources from the government to address local issues. Elections will happen way less often as long as people believe that they can't be leaders. Because what are you going to do? Pick some random guy? This is who showed up. The education crisis does affect politics. Literacy rates being so low, test scores being so low, dropouts being high, college enrollment being low, affects the kind of government that can effectively keep us from sending the world into anarchy, which is why it's so important to be able to engage. And it shows it to me again. For people to be engaged in the world, in the world in which they live, that comes back to let them live. Because what are politics? It's a social contract, ratified and enforced by means that do not discriminate except by terms defined in that social contract. That is the truth of a functional system. Anything else is dysfunction. Anything else can be addressed. And so it's important for our imagination. It's important for our imaginations, for our ability to innovate, to understand what's at play here. And it fucking sends my eyes there. Again, it's calling me that. I know it's calling me that word. I know it's calling me the N-word. It keeps throwing my eyes towards the N-word. I know it's calling me the N-word. And so Bell Hooks sees herself as a slave. Not funny. Not funny. You didn't need me to get assaulted to understand Bell Hooks. And so Bell Hooks sees herself. She sees her last ditch sort of effort, her most uncontrolled self, something that in some situation in which she's completely unaware and and subjugated, some situation where she changes without her consent, without her willing to change. She sees all of that power tied up in this hegemony. She recognizes hegemony in that there are parts of her that change without her volunteering to change. And she recognizes it as hegemony when she draws these conclusions, because she doesn't think, well, maybe this is something that doesn't have to do with the people. Maybe this is something that has to do with what we're thinking and what we're consuming to inform our thoughts. Which is why a much more mature Bell Hooks insists that this right to reinscription is so important. So important. You know, when the pagans were taken over, when the Holy Roman Empire went through Europe, spread throughout Europe, paganism was heavily penalized. Because the strategy you could take as this Roman Catholic carrying the church's authority was to divide the people. One of the ways you could divide the people was to remove their way of understanding themselves. We think of religion as this sort of like pre-philosophy, right? It's this way that humans adapted before the invention of like philosophy to explain the intangible, the relationships between people, and even imperceptible changes in their environment that could affect them, right? Spirits and physics, all of these things that are so tied into like philosophy and science today are tied into religion for these ancient people. So for the Holy Roman Empire to rampage through Europe and burn these churches, rename the temples, pull up the symbols, execute the priesthood, for them to go through Europe and do all these things, they're severing people from the knowledge of themselves and redefining them. So this desire for reinscription is not American. It's not black. It's experienced worldwide. I don't know a lot about Asian history, but I can't imagine that no one in China thought that, well, if we go over to Japan and kind of mess with how they think, things will be different, you know? I can't imagine that no one ever thought of that. And so, and not just Japan, but like any of Asia, right? I'm sure the Chinese were very happy to receive opium from the English, Yeah, it's like it's redefining their knowledge of themselves. It's not just going to church on Sunday and sitting through some sermon, right? It's not going for donuts, all right? You're going to class. You're going to how to build a society class. It's very different for these ancient peoples. So reinscription, holy fucking shit. So reinscription is so important. It's so important. I'm going to turn my head very intentionally to find where I was reading. Given the similarity of positioning within sexist norms, personal contact between the two groups was carefully constructed to reinforce difference in status based on race. don't think I'm smarter than I am. I'm just gonna tell you right now. I swear. This is a tangent. This is addressing a very small percentage of the audience. Don't think I'm smarter than I am. I'm a fucking klutz. Okay. I live on this half of my fucking brain. Okay. And I have for about 29 years. Recognizing class difference was not enough of a division. White women wanted their racial status affirmed. They devised strategies, both subtle and overt, to reinforce racial difference to assert their superior positions. Because they're learning. They're getting involved in social learning. So reinscription, right? So they are looking at their environment, right? Because they're learning from what is. If you remember being in school, what was around, clicks and weed, right? You know, clicks, drugs, video games, whatever the fuck it was. Music, movies, TV shows, and you know the teachers themselves, right? There's a lot of sources to draw from, and somehow, you know, they come to this very universal, very generalized question: what is this? And their mind goes from that question to a place where Bell Hooks believes she is the subject. She is the servant. And it must have been hard for her, you know, because who the fuck talks either? You know, it's not like some fucking Disney Channel movie nerd comes up to her and is like, I saw what they were doing to you. That's not cool. You know, like, fucking, this is real life. People are shy and fucking quiet. She did make a group of friends that was racially mixed. Her friend was a white guy, but it's like, you know, like, we all had that group of friends where it's like, maybe you didn't like anybody. Maybe there were a few people that you didn't like. You didn't just like anybody, you know? You did like people. You didn't just like anybody, though, you know? Especially in high school where you're just kind of sent to this place every day and you're just kind of navigating that. But yeah, moving on. They devised strategies, which is a bold claim for a teenager to make, but goes to show like how emotionally intense this must be for them that they think that people are planning against them. They devised strategies, both subtle and overt, to reinforce racial difference, to assert their superior positions. A few unnameable people, are defining this entire experience with this other race to her. And they're not the exception, in her opinion, because she sees it everywhere. This was especially the case in households, which are everywhere, where white women remained home during the day while black female servants worked all over the place. White women might talk about the N-word or enact ritualized scenarios focusing on race in order to stress differentiation in status. Even a small gesture, showing a black servant a new dress that she would not be able to try on in a store because of Jim Crow laws, reminded all concerned of the difference in status based on race. I mean, and then what's the differential? I mean, like, what else could that be, right? Like, put on your thinking caps. You know, like, put on your thinking caps. Like, you know, what's going on with it? Maybe these people are just stuck in their ways. They feel comfortable. They're on an outing. They're on a leisurely outing, trying to have fun. And the way they feel free to have fun is to do what they do. You know, one person's at work, one person's out. Like, you're just being yourself. If you draw that person out of you, you know, that you think is like very inherent to yourself. You know, you're going to think about what that person does and you're going to do it without thinking about how it makes you feel necessarily or how it makes other people feel. And that person who quietly sits there within you feeling these things is kind of left out of the equation. Historically, white female efforts to maintain racial dominance. And I don't like that she prints it like this because it's like, I feel like people forget she's a teenager in one page. All it takes is one page. You know, if you have to repeat something like several times to remember it, why is it that she just gets to say teenager once and like assume that like we're so enraptured that we know that we don't have to explain this to ourselves or others, you know? That we don't have other shit we're doing. Historically, white female efforts to maintain racial dominance were directly connected to the politics of heterosexism within a white supremacist patriarchy. Hold on. I had a cramp in my neck that was distracting me. Oh. Oh. It's because it's hot. Because it makes you feel like you're the wizard. Like you get to say it. You define reality. Also, the wording is like way less awkward when you're not like repeating yourself all the time. I'm a little gassy. I might have to take a shit in a second here. Well, let me see if I can get through this. Let me just read the first sentence. I'm gonna sit on the toilet for a minute. Historically, white female efforts to maintain racial dominance were directly connected to the politics of heterosexism within a white supremacist patriarchy. Right. Because they're viewed as objects. That's not the AFK screen. Because they're viewed as objects. Okay, wait, I'm gonna be right back. My stomach hurts. All right. All right. No one panic. I'm back. Oh my god, my stomach, dude. So it was like so gaseous. So these people could be doing all of this violent, like all of these things that are offensive, all this violence, saying all these things about the violence, describing the violence, explaining it time and time again what they were doing and what they felt about the person or what they were doing. But if they have no understanding outside of what they understand is like the source of their pain or the source of their domination or the source of their impotency, right? Um, it's always going to reinscribe this sort of racism. You're gonna be reproducing racism in society. Um, which is a problem. Obviously, we don't want people to reproduce racism in society. If people stop reproducing racism in society, uh, we hope that it's because they found something much more productive to do. Um, and so it's important to embolden our imagination and to give it this language that allows us to understand how we can take responsibility as people in a democracy to address issues that seem completely out of our hands. Take AI regulation, for example. This whole and I'm not going to say that I understand corporate structures. I'm not going to say that I understand business law. Okay. I'm working on that. All right. It's very expensive to get a good education on something like that. All right. Um, and I'm building myself up. Trust me. I'll try to read it. All right. But it's gonna take some time. It's gonna take a little bit of time. Uh, but I can intuit that because this hasn't changed and because this material exists and because people understand these things, that people understand that there is the opportunity to dissolve hierarchies and restructure hierarchies on the fly that can mitigate a lot of the societal dysfunction that's felt by our inability to identify and address these sort of negative practices, because while showing a woman a dress is not inherently a bad thing, there might be one or two white women out there who go to tea and openly admit or openly flaunt that yes, this is something that I do that affects us. Maybe it's black people shouldn't be relegated to this servant role. Maybe black people should be compensated more for this servant role so that they can have some dignity in their silence and their dignity in their non-participation because they understand that they're adequately compensated, right? Yeah, the people can be together in this way at this time as long as they know that equality exists in some manner, right? So where's the black woman who gets to make this decision, who has this experience, right? It's you're going to expect regulation with less voting that perpetuates societal dysfunction long after problems are identified. Okay? And there are going to be these small windows in time in which people can address these societal dysfunctions that people suddenly need to be able to agree on a scale that removes people from the problem in the first place. So, by having less of these councils, by having a weaker democracy, we see that these pain, that this pain, that this violence, that this friction, this destitution is perpetuated through and this is what it is now, the accumulation of power, the centralization of power. All of this dysfunction lends itself to the centralization of power. And that's the problem today. There are people born into it. We're way past that. We're way past that. Dudes are dying out there. We're out of survivors. People were born into it. Who the fuck knows how any of this stuff works? And so in this crisis that we find ourselves, it's important to exercise our imagination, because how else are we going to uplift ourselves from this dark place? Historically, white female efforts to maintain racial dominance were directly connected to the politics of heterosexism within a white supremacist patriarchy. Sexist norms, which deemed white women inferior because of gender, could be mediated by racial bonding. And we see this today. Even though males, white and black, may have been most concerned. I thought it was going to say more, but it said most. May have been most concerned with policing or gaining access to white women's bodies. The social reality white women lived was one in which white males did actively engage in sexual relationships with black women. In the midst of most white in the minds of most white women, it was not important that the overwhelming majority of these liaisons were forged by aggressive coercion, rape, and other forms of sexual assault. White women saw black women as competitors in the sexual marketplace. Whoa. Within a cultural setting, there's so much to unpack there. I was sexually assaulted last semester. The case is closed, so I don't even mind talking about it. So I was sexually assaulted on the second week of class, the second or third week of class last semester. So basically what had happened was this. I was in chemistry class, and we go to a lab, right? So I'm in chemistry lab, right? And in the lab we have lockers for like all of our equipment and shit like that, right? And so all right, and this is just my sliver of the situation, right? So I go into class. I'm expecting to do class. That's what I do. I do class. It's my thing. I go into class, I do class, and I leave. This class is a very peaceful place, and it's very easy to do so. Okay? I didn't like homework for the longest time because of other reasons, because of the video games and the violence and all that stuff. The violence outside of the video games, obviously. But that's let's set that aside for a moment. I'm in class and there's lockers, right? So I'm sitting at this table, right? So my locker's here and this other person's locker is here, right? This other person is like this tiny white woman. She looks like Haley from Paramore. Okay? And I'm over here, right? And so we're just doing our thing, opening the lockers, getting used to lab, all that stuff. And so they have like these stations. So it's like a locker. It's like a desk with drawers, and those all lock. And there's like, I'm gonna go insane. And there's like stations for you to like sit at a stool and like do your work, right? And so there's this other person there, right? I'm not interacting with Haley Williams. She's doing her own thing. But this other guy comes over, right? And he's interested in Haley Williams. And he's in class, and he's not necessarily friends with anybody. He doesn't like come in knowing anyone. He's just like this like lone agent who's like ready to like do his thing in class, right? And this is kind of what I hate about being in community college. He's just this fucking schlup who signed up for the class because his parents like fucking told him to, and all he wants to do is like fucking schmooze and fail. Um and it's so fucking frustrating being so vulnerable because you know, people like this are like around me. You know, what's the solution? I don't know. Outside of school, clearly, but you know, in this situation, it's part of the reason I don't like going to like a school that's so easy to enroll in. Um, so this guy comes out of nowhere, right? Like, I don't know where he's from. Haley Williams doesn't know where he's from, and he's like, he's leaning in. He's like, he's like, I'm seated here. Haley Williams is here, and he's here. Okay, I'm already unpacked. My bag is here. My shit's here. My lab notebook's here. I'm sitting here. Okay, it's right next to my locker. All right, no one else has a locker near mine. Okay, and throughout all the drawers in the entire class, I was assigned a locker that's not near anyone else's locker. This is where I'm sitting. His locker's on the other side of the room. Okay, but he wants to talk to Haley Williams. Because he's like, he feels like fucking entitled to like to his like aggressive sexual like fucking presence. Now how do I know it's an aggressive sexual presence? So I'm sitting there and he uses his bad breath tactic, something very common these days if you didn't know, to breathe into my face to get me to leave. And I ignore it. This is the kind of like bitch made Gen Z shit that I have to put up with constantly. So he leaves and he goes over to talk to the other people who look like him near me. And so he goes over to basically catcall me with racism. He's like calling me a loke. He's like basically like doing take your meds and fucking East LA you know, cholo in one, right? And so I'm like, hey man, you have something to say? You want to talk? You want to talk? I literally call him from across the room. And you know, no one else would recognize what I'm saying if they didn't know what the fuck was going on, right? Normal people hear someone call someone from the other side of the room, they don't even know it's them. He knows it's him. Okay, he's like fucking reacting. So I'm like, you want to talk? You want to talk about it? Like, you want to fucking do this? Like, you want to tell me about settler colonialism, man? Tell me about racism. You want to talk about racism, dude? Like, and he's like, cause he's like fucking, he's trying to get me to do something to get me kicked out of class, which is just straight out of the colonizer and the colonized. I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's ridiculousness. So he does this for the rest of the semester. He does everything he can to like get behind me and hump me. He does everything he can. On the first day, he fucking presses into me like that in front of everybody. And yet somehow when they call in witnesses to the office, no one has a clear account. He literally waits until no one's looking to assault me like this throughout the entire class. I'm turning around during lab. The only reason I got any labs done is because this other guy fucking noticed and like became my fucking lab partner. I would not have finished any fucking labs this semester with the amount of watching my fucking back that I had to do if I didn't have a fucking lab partner. It is ridiculous. He made it a point to not only harass me, but to harass Haley Williams throughout the entire experience. And you know when he decided to drop out of the class? Because he dropped out before finals. He was failing. He was failing that fucking class. You know when he decided to drop out? Right after Haley Williams dropped out. These people are fucking sick. And it pisses me the fuck off. I was this close, man. I was waiting for him to do something, man. My hands were here. Any fucking time he was near me, I wanted him to do it. Because I was fucking upset. Okay? So you know what I did? I channeled that rage. I went straight to the front office. I opened up a Title IX case. He lies. He lies through every fucking meeting. He lies through his fucking teeth about everything. On the first day that he heard that he was being investigated, he was in the fucking campus security office. You want to know how I knew this? Because he was harassing me that day, and I had to inform campus security that he was breaking our no contact, our no contact order. He broke the no contact order almost every fucking lab session. Throughout the entire semester that he was there, no action taken against him. because he lied through his fucking teeth the entire time. I just fucking know it. Because he fought it. Because he expressed in that office that he wanted to fight it. These are the kinds of shitheads that are so fucked in the head that it ruins my life. You know what I got in the class? A fucking A. Not just any A. Highest A in the fucking class. Because I'm a motherfucker. I'm a fucking player. I'm out there to kill it. It's fucking bullshit. So, because he can't get with Haley Williams, he decides to sexually harass me. That's where his energy was. That's where he wanted to direct his energy. He's like, you know, I'm not getting what I'm entitled to as a man. So I guess I'll take it out on the next best thing. This fucking tranny. So yeah, I kind of understand. Just a little bit. There's ugly white women. I'm aware of this. Now, and then ugliness. I mean, what's the difference between race and ugliness, really? In the minds of most white women, it was not important that the overwhelming majority of these liaisons were forged by aggressive coercion, rape, and other forms of sexual assault. White women saw black women as competitors in the sexual marketplace. Within a cultural setting where a white woman's status was overdetermined by her relationship to white men, it follows that white women desired to maintain clear separations between their status and that of black women. It was crucial that black women be kept at a distance, that racial taboos forbidding legal regulations between the two groups of being reinforced. It was crucial that black women be kept at a distance, that racial taboos forbidding legal relations between the two groups be enforced either by law or social opinion. In those rare cases where slaveholding white men sought divorces to legitimate liaisons with black slave women, they were most often judged insane. The black women? I can't imagine a white man being judged insane, because when someone gets judged insane today, it's like the same thing as going to like jail. It's like jail time. So I don't know. It just seems, maybe. I don't know. That's worded like shit. But apparently that's cool to the editor. In a white supremacist patriarchy, that relationship which most threatened to disrupt, challenge, and dismantle white power. Oh, here she goes. In a white supremacist patriarchy, that relationship which most threatened to disrupt, challenge, and dismantle white power, its co-committed social order, was the legalized union between a white man and a black woman. Why? Slave testimony, as well as the diaries of Southern white women, record incidents of jealousy, rivalry, and sexual competition between white mistresses and enslaved black women. Court records document that individual white men did try to gain public recognition of their bonds with black women, either through attempts to marry or through efforts to leave property and money in wills. Most of these cases were contested by white family members. Importantly, white females were protecting their fragile social positions and power within patriarchal structure by asserting their superiority over black women. No, here's the racial bonding. They were not necessarily trying to prevent white men from engaging in sexual relations with black women, for this was not in their power. Such is the nature of patriarchy. Yeah. Yeah, the subordination. Because white women are subordinate to white men in that relationship. The patriarchy subordinates white women to white men so that estate transfers through marriage um can continue, because otherwise, I mean, why isn't the white woman just entitled to the land? Because she's not a man. Simple as. So long as sexual unions with black women and white men took place in a non-legalized context, oh, they're gonna get in trouble. Within a framework of subjugation, coercion, and degradation, the split between white female status as ladies and black sorry, my tongue went crazy. The split between white females' status as ladies and black women's representation as whores could be maintained. Thus, to some extent, white women's class and race privilege was reinforced by the maintenance of a system where black women were the subjects of white male subjugation and abuse. Right. Right. That's fascinating. So, I mean, I guess the question is, if white women are no longer subject to patriarchy, does the racism end? I mean, like, directly connected in one way, I suppose. Um, wow. That's really interesting. That's a really solid argument. Um, she kind of circles back around here, and she kind of ties it up. Um, that's a really solid evidence-based argument. Um, that's did she learn this in high school, or like, is that something they were teaching in high school? Or is that like something she like learned later? What was happening in high school? Bell hooks, why are some of these words in quotes? Bell Bell hooks, why are some of these words in quotes? I no, but like, that's interesting. I don't see what this has to do with her being a teenager, but I can understand why like academics might enjoy this kind of thing, because it's fucking blasphemy. What do you mean she's learning this as a teenager? Is this what contemporary discussions? You just moved past that like it was nothing. You, what the fuck is going on in this chapter? This was about her being a teenager. Bruh, what? Are you just like never gonna change? Are these your truies? Is this your, like, assigned station in life by birth? Like, fucking class style? Like, what the fuck? Going insane. Alright. Getting the bald effect. I'm gonna flatten out all my hair. And use the hat technique. That's ridiculous. What the fuck? What is going on? Don't like applying too much heat to my hair. Just gonna go with the hat. What the fuck? She's rage baiting me. She's rage baiting me. There's something classist in this text, and it's rage baiting me. What do you mean, like, the inherent importance of being a teenager? The inherent importance of learning these things early? What are you talking about? Assigned stations, recognizability. What the fuck? What's going on, dude? What does this confusion, this contemporary argument have anything to do with your teenage behavior? How does this justify anything you did as a teenager? What does this have to do with you being a teenager? What's the point of, like, saying you're a teenager to, like, get, like, forgiveness from the audience for, like, edgy points of view, and then suddenly transitioning to the present as if you've never changed? That's like some legacy shit. That's, like, literally, like, links beyond the text. Backroom mysticism, backroom dealings, like brotherhood type shit from, like, the warlord era in China. Like, what the fuck is this? There's something deeply wrong with assigning people these stations at birth. Given the total bastardization of history that's happened up to this point. Just a cheap way to maintain the status quo without ever reviewing the potency of the political system. Or the political actors themselves. Give no one a chance. Why? So you can accept bribes? The fuck is this? Well, no, it's so that you can go back to being a hardworking corporate American, serving on some board as, like, fucking CFO. What the fuck is this? Pisses me off. Whatever. Well, that's why it pisses me off. That's why it's fucking rage baiting me. Contemporary discussions of the historical relationship between white and black women. We're still on this. Damn. It's going in deep, huh? Contemporary discussions of the historical relationship between white and black women must include acknowledgement of the bitterness black slave women felt towards white women. They harbored understandable resentment and repressed rage about racial oppression, but they were particularly aggrieved by the overwhelming absence of sympathy shown by white women in circumstances involving sexual and physical abuse of black women, as well as situations where black children were taken away from their enslaved mothers. I feel like I'm on a different page. I'm obviously for it, but not for the same reasons at all, which is usually a good sign. Usually that's a sign of peace. But how do you make a sign of peace something damnable? You make the identity political. You give it power. How do you make that power? How do you render that power to some central force? you ascribe to it an image and actions that must be taken based on that image. According to an impenetrable psychological propensity to draw the conclusion that this action is necessary. I mean, hate to say it, but maybe just make it life or death. Or like, you know, that's what like normal people think about, but I guess like money or something. You represent death. You take every symbol for death and you warp it to create this this subculture in which everyone feels as though they must act. That's one way. That sounds like a real cool old-fashioned way to manipulate the masses. All right, there we go. And it's true. They must recognize this because it's if we don't have the right to reinscribe these things now, then that's the first compromise you make before you have the power. That's the first compromise you make going into educating yourself. What a painful book. Again, it was within this realm of shared concern. White women knew the horror of sexual and physical abuse as well as the depth of a mother's attachment to her children. That the majority of white women who might have experienced empathetic identification turned their backs on black women's pain. That's hurtful. It just exists there. Same moment, different action, different image, different dedication. And then maybe a minority of people have differing methodology. Wow. That's an education crisis for you. That's the centralization of power through an education crisis. As long as there's a minority of people who understand what's happening, there's a minority of people with power. And that's centralizing power. Because if you need something done, you're going to give that person the right to make the decision with no involvement from yourself. That's a scam. That's stealing. Shared understanding of particular female experiences did not mediate relations between most white mistresses and black slave women. Darn. That feels genuinely terrible. Though there were rare exceptions, they had little impact on the overall structure of relationships between black and white women. Despite the brutal oppression of black females, I think that's such a fucking, this is such a lie. What did I just say? Why would there be little impact on the overall structure of relations between black and white women if there were exceptions themselves? Because they lacked the communication, the elaborate communication apparatus made possible through technology to make a minority's power so widely known and potent within a time frame that it's effective. So by becoming cyberstalked, a few good people can make a difference in more people's lives. That's a way I genuinely live my life. The way I've been talking about it since I was in high school. If anyone wants you, they can just fucking post on some forum for some hacker to find you. 4chan taught me. Anyway, dog was barking. I believe it happened. But it's not enough. And it's not gonna last. Someone's going to learn to fight me before any change happens. And the status quo will be maintained. The invisibility of these powerful people will be maintained as long as the status quo is maintained. Because the status quo is an image given to rich people to tell them how to stay a minority. So I take issue with this, but it just shows the times. It was 1994. It was a different time. Roger Griffin was saying the same thing. It's 2026. Things are different. I think this line has changed a lot in the past few decades. Since 2014, at least. But I would argue since 2002. On a much smaller scale. But yeah, since 2014, this has changed. Just look at hyperpop. What the fuck is hyperpop? Moving on. Despite the brutal oppression of black female slaves, many white women fear them. They may have believed that more than anything, black women wanted to change their places with them, to acquire their social status, to marry their men. And they may have feared, given white male obsession with black women, oh my god, that there were no legal and social taboos forbidding legalized relations. And they must have feared that were there no legal and social taboos forbidding legalized relations, they would lose their status. That's the status quo. That's the status quo. They maintain the status quo based on fear. And then they hire middle management to do it. But it's fear. It is fear-based thinking. Because in isolation, you truly know nothing. That's facts. I'll say that every time. You can have a lot of ideas about what might be true, but you have to go out there and find it, and you have to spend your entire time educating yourself about it, and then to turn that into action, you must bequeath that unto others. Now imagine, I get cyber stalked, and, I get sexually assaulted, or, I get some dickhead teacher that I have to go to, the dean about, right? I'm sure these people just, they step out of line. They might die. Other people might die. You're born into one of these legacies. You're born into a world of peril. It's weird. Because your ability to decide is valuable. That being said, I think an inversion of power then is the quickest way to escape these trappings, right? To escape these forces, an invasion of power is necessary. So this education crisis affects everyone. Why incriminate yourself? The abolition of slavery had little meaningful positive impact on relations between white and black women. Without the structure of slavery, which institutionalized in a fundamental way the different status of black and white women were all the more concerned that social taboos uphold their racial superiority and forbid legalized relations between their races. Whoa, that's deep. I know that's deep. They were instrumental in perpetuating degrading stereotypes about black womanhood. Hold on. I had gas. They were instrumental in perpetuating degrading stereotypes about black womanhood because they were viewed as objects. The objectification of someone is the instrumentation of their body. You become this game piece in which other people's rewards are contingent on your behavior. And so they view you as something that they just want to change, like some kind of gamer, some kind of gambler. They were instrumental in perpetuating degrading stereotypes about black womanhood. Wow. That's a sickness. You have to take pity on people like that. You know, it's a pitiable position, but you have to be firm, obviously. You have to be firm, but that it's just they're pitiable, right? Many of these stereotypes reinforce the notion that black women were lewd, immoral, sexually licentious, and lacking in intelligence. White women had a closeness with black women in the domestic household that made it appear that they knew what they were really like. They had direct contact. Though there is little published material from the early 20th century documenting white female perceptions of black women and vice versa, segregation diminished the possibility that the two groups might develop a new basis of contact with one another outside the realm of servant served. Okay. Living in segregated neighborhoods, there was little chance that white and black women would meet one another on common neutral ground. I think in terms of her persuasiveness, I've checked out. I think as an authority on anything but herself, Bell Hooks is unreliable because she's decided to take this aggressive rhetorical stance to blur the lines between how she feels and how she's developed her thoughts. Which is fine until you realize she's like this published author that people will quote directly to gain legitimacy, without ever qualifying what she says in this way. Now, not necessarily in an academic context, but more often than not, in a business context, in a social context that has material consequences, maybe even in a political context, like a political science context, which is obviously a problem, because anyone who cares is getting fucked if this person succeeds, right? Gotta take it with a grain of salt, man. That's what I'm saying. Like, this education crisis, this lack of discretion from the average person is hurting us. It's really good. I like what she's saying. It's just I don't like when she blurs the lines. Want to make sure we're on track. This might be a two-parter. These chapters are really involved. I mean, there's just a lot to explain, right? You know? Doing it for you, the audience. Don't worry about it. Black women who traveled from her segregated The black woman who traveled from her segregated neighborhood into unsafe white areas to work in the homes of white families never had a set of familial relations, however tenuous, that were visible and known by white women employers as they had been the case under slavery. The new social arrangement was as much a context for dehumanization as the plantation household, with the one relief that black women could return home. Within the social circumstances of slavery, white mistresses were sometimes compelled by circumstance, caring feelings, or concern for property to enter the black female's place of residence and be cognizant of a realm of experience beyond the servant-served sphere. This was not the case within the white female employer. This was not the case with the white female employer. Racially segregated neighborhoods, which were the norm in most cities and rural areas, meant that black women left poor neighborhoods to work in privileged white homes. there was little or no chance that this circumstance would promote and encourage friendships between the two groups. This is like a deep cut. It's like someone wanted to make sure that like any sort of like thing in the past that's ever brought sympathy between the two groups of people was just planned out in an earlier stage, just completely removed by virtue of planning in an earlier stage. That's intense. That's really intense. I feel flat. All right, there we go. All right. Over time, people learn to adapt. People will, as people, politicians with their own unique experiences will enter the office and do things based on what they understand and how they're informed. And so in this case, they've decided to create housing that excludes white people from their lives, specifically white women, disconnecting these two groups of women in this case. Name of the chapter is Holding My Sister's Hand, which I think is a bit condescending, and I don't love it, but it's what got published. I don't think that's a good way to empower people, but there's a lot going on here that's important to pay attention to. So I'll continue. So basically these people, these planners, they took an approach like this, right? It suggested that they took an approach where they were like, well, we want to make sure that there's little or no chance that this circumstance would promote and encourage friendship between the two groups. So what do we do? How do we house them? How do we get them out of sight? They're like, you know what we do? Put them in private housing. We make the property separate from other people or whatever. I don't think this is a new concept necessarily, but I think at some point that was discussed. I think at some point someone was like, this is what's got to happen. And people agreed to it. Probably a lot of men. A lot of men agreed to this. White women continued to see black women as sexual competitors, ignoring white male sexual assault and abuse of black females. Although they have written poignant memoirs which describe affectional bonds between themselves and black female servants, white women often failed to acknowledge that intimacy and care can coexist with domination. It has been difficult for white women who perceive black women servants to be like one of the family to understand that the servant might have a completely different understanding of their relationship. The servant may be ever mindful that no degree of affection or care alter differences in status, or the reality that white women exercise power, whether benevolently or tyrannically. Okay. I want to see how she builds this into the main point of the book. But it's, sure. Yeah. But that's, how are you going to discuss that in a book if you're telling me that I have to witness the different experiences? Like, if you're telling me I have to witness the different experiences of people to understand this, how am I supposed to explain this in the context of a book? You see me with 5 views? That's a fuck you to you. Because it's a fuck me. And I'm a loser. It's the best I can do. Much of the current scholarship by white women focusing on relationships between black women domestics and white female employers presents perspectives that, this is 1994, that highlight positives How much of this can I skip? I was struck by her willingness. I'm just gonna skim. Because I feel like a lot of this is gonna be contingent to the past in a way that's like so into itself that it's just like, if I'm not talking to a black woman who experiences like discrimination from a lot of white women, I'm not sure why I'm reading this. I'm not a black woman. Um I don't feel unequipped to deal with white women. I'm sorry if you feel like you're getting left out here, but I don't. Maybe if a black woman was sitting here, it'd be a lot easier to go through some of this, but it's hard to say that this is like anything but persuasive. I mean that's so let's talk about that. It's important to be persuasive, right? So we want to understand that like what we're doing has like an effect on things. That's like the most human thing ever. Is people like it when they have an effect on things. All this talk about social media addiction and video game addiction and feeling left out, feeling excluded, all of this is discussing um this notion that people want to affect things and that somehow psychologically our focus and our memory is tied into our ability to satisfy our desire to affect things. Some amount of desire to affect things is healthy. Um, Completely dissociating is not the solution. Okay, catatonia, like artificial catatonia, is not the solution. Um, Artificial schizophrenia is also not the solution, which is why I'm kind of taking this section a little slow now. What she's saying is true and good, but it's in the context of what I want to understand and render from this book. It is a moment in time deeply. Hold on. It is a moment in time deeply interwoven into this person's personal history of oppression. This is something Bell hooks through the recognition of her own loss of power and loss of ability to self-actualize has arrived to through a ton of psychological work to allow her to employ this kind of evidence-based thinking that's instrumental, intrinsic to the fair enforcement of social rules, to learning and to memory, right? And so while her words don't explicitly address this, that is what is happening. That is what you can notice from here, is that she is taking her own advice, she is feeling empowered, and she's feeling connected to the rest of society, right? By playing by society's rules, by involving herself in this higher education, she's going beyond the image to understand herself, and most importantly, she's able to communicate that to other people. She's not coming up with a bunch of schizophrenic slang and megalomaniac psychobabble to explain why white women are like this. She's saying, okay, well, I never had to dismiss this thought because there's something true about it in life. Even if I didn't learn it, I never learned that it wasn't true. And she might say that eventually. I just want to know if she ever says that. No. And she's probably not going to say that. Because this is where her expertise is. If she wants to get published, she has to talk about black women and white women and gender. The hack here is to take everything she's learned from Freire and from Thothan, the other guy whose name escapes me, and apply that to what she's doing honestly as an impressive act of academic rigor. This book is so much work. So much freaking work. Too much work sometimes. I almost don't want to give her the credibility because it's like, this is so deceptive. In the sense that, like, anyone can do this, right? Anyone can speak in this way, and because they succeed, we understand that they succeed, and they're just as good as bell hooks, right? But bell hooks starts it with this explanation, and there's just careful. There are careful cognitive linkages presented here, and sequencing of dissemination that makes what she had said earlier applicable to what she's saying now in a way that the audience is able to learn from her. And it's more complicated than anything in the book. So now I'm worried that if I don't read this, I'm not going to get the next book where she might belie some of these truths. I might get lost in Freire if I don't understand this woman's arguments about gender and race and sexuality, about feminism and sexuality. And so it's very frustrating for me to go through this because that's just this contradiction placed here by the publishing companies. And I don't want to give it credit because it gets too much credit right now. I'm doing the work. I should put my fucking name on this. My name is on this. Sort of. It's on the screen. Not like I get any kickback from it. And so it's just like, I'm worried that I'm going to give her too much credit. So I want to, for a moment, while we go through this, separate her work from her message and say that something so much more profound is happening here that it cannot be purely attributed to Gloria Watkins or even the pseudonym Bell Hooks. And we'll proceed. Take this with a grain of salt, because I am about to go to town with a lot of conjecture. Way more than usual. Because I'm implicitly stating that Bell Hooks is writing this intentionally. The biggest piece of conjecture here that you must fight to ignore is that I am implicitly stating that Bell Hooks created this synthesis. It's not true, but it is a temporary belief that I will instill in myself to render valuable information from the text. So let's analyze Bell Hooks while she makes herself easy to read. Which is true, that she makes it easy to read. Let's just draw the line there. Let's draw the line at easy to read. Okay, where am I? Where am I? Much of the current scholarship by white women focusing on relationships between black women domestics and white female employers presents perspectives that highlight positives, obscuring the way negative interaction in these settings have created profound mistrust and hostility between the two groups. Profound is the word here. Black female servants. Now, we've seen profound twice. I think it stands to be said. It's profound because it happens beyond us. It is spiritual. It is invisible. It is social. Okay? Religion, philosophy, science, however you want to look at this. Okay? It is something that is purely the synthesis of interactions between people and not the intentional action of the people themselves. Okay? Black female servants interviewed, nonetheless, they experience it, and this experience is unified in word, making it extremely profound. Black female servants interviewed by white women often give the impression that their relationships with white women... I swear to God, if I get assaulted again. I go to doctors. You know what they find? They find plantar fasciitis. Why do I have plantar fasciitis? Why do I have all these tests being run on me? No nerve damage. Oh, but there's plantar fasciitis there. And it turns out I have a tightness in my jaws that requires a mouth guard to be worn. Also, I'm having spasms. I'm experiencing physical effects, motherfucker. Black female servants interviewed by white women often give the impression that their relationships with white women employers had many positive dimensions. They say what they feel is the polite and correct version of reality, often suppressing truths. We don't want to see people suppress the truth, because it won't be the first thing they think of when they're in school. If you hear contradicting information, you have to know who to attribute it to. Okay, and you have to be willing to say that information to others. Take my station, brother. Again, it must be remembered that exploitative situations can also be settings where caring ties emerge even in the face of domination. Feminists should know this from the evidence that care exists in heterosexual relationships where men abuse women. That's wild. Hearing Susan Tucker give an oral presentation discussing her book, Telling Memories Among Southern Women, Domestic Workers, Employers in the Segregated South. I was struck by her willingness to acknowledge that a white child cared for by black women. She remembered overhearing. I was struck by her willingness to acknowledge that as a white child cared for by black women, she remembered overhearing them expressing negative feelings about white women. Oh my fucking god. I get it. I get the rhetorical strategy now. Wait a second. All those times that she was writing things all fucked up to get me to read it in different ways, that's part of the non-discrimination in learning. That's part of what teachers have to understand about what they're saying that students aren't getting. Fuck. No, we're gonna read Freire. We're gonna read Freire soon. But fuck, that's so fucking intentional and intelligent. What the fuck? It's an exercise. Reading it in many ways is an exercise in memory and understanding and giving people dignity, allowing people to be an end in themselves instead of a means to an end. She was shocked by their expressions of rage, enmity, and contempt. We both remembered a common declaration of black women. I've never met a white woman over the age of 12 that I can respect. Ooh, shit. In contrast to her memories, I resonate with that. I resonate with that deeply. Dude, when I started transitioning, I lost my younger brother like that. Damn. In contrast to her memories, Tucker's contemporary discussion paints a much more positive picture of the subject. More evidence-based thinking. This time based on the authority of Susan Tucker. It's so important. It's so important to create this web of evidence because it'll be what defines reality for people when it comes down to it. You know, that's why she criticizes the language and jargon, especially used in academic writing, because it loses people. Because people read the words in a different way and they assume they know what it means. And guess what? I'm the teacher in this video, and I'm assuming that you know what profound means before I even explain it. The way that I'm using it, based on my experience, I'm expecting you to know it? That's ridiculous. In contrast to her memories, Tucker's contemporary discussion paints a much more positive picture of the subject. Studies of black and white women's relationships must cease to focus solely on whether interaction between black servants and white female employers was positive. If we are to understand our contemporary relations, we must explore the impact of those encounters on black women's perceptions of white women as a whole. Many of us who have never been white women's servants have inherited ideas about them from relatives and kin, ideas which shape our expectations and interactions. If you feel a certain way, if you put emotion into something, that excites your brain in a way that can release more dopamine, especially when it's like a very peaceful situation where nothing's pushing the chemicals away from your hippocampus, right? And this sort of like engagement of the peaceful and the emotional creates this wonderful fertile ground in your mind that allows you, if you're someone who struggles, maybe even to exceed what you've been able to do before. There's so much to this. I keep saying video games. That's because when I quit video games, all that negativity, all those negative emotions that pushed, you know, that is, I don't know the whole interaction, but like something about my negative emotions made it difficult to inscribe what I was observing into my memory over the negativity itself and what I felt was pertinent at the time. So there's so much going on there. This I'll have to research more. But I think there's something deep to this that could be useful for anyone. Studies of black and white women's relationship must cease to focus solely on whether interaction between black servants and white female employers was positive. If we are to understand our contemporary relations, we must explore the impact of those encounters on black women's perceptions of white women as a whole. Those of us who have never been white women's servants have inherited ideas about them from our relatives and kin, idea which shape our expectations and interactions. And she always just punctuates her large statements like this with something like that people like just so like inherently believe. And I love that. I fucking love that. That's like that's just involving. You know, that's really like man, that's getting people involved. At least me. You know what I advocate for, right? Like I public school, private school. I think there should only be public school first of all. And I think like people flipping burgers could just as easily be people tutoring other people. Easily. I think that's like closer to like a functional society. Um so this punctuation at the end is like just it's so effective in the system that I want to see go down, you know? It's effective in the system that I see working on a private level that should be working on a public level. Smaller class sizes. And I've been hearing it since I was 10 years old. Smaller class sizes, please. My memories and present day awareness based on conversations with my mother, who works as a maid for white women, and the comments and stories of black women in our communities indicate that in safe settings, black women highlight the negative aspects of working as servants for white women. Oh my God. Oh my God. What am I learning? They express intense anger, hostility, bitterness, and envy, and very little affection or care, even when they are speaking positively. Many of these women recognize. Sorry, I'm gassy. One sec. Do you mind if I grab some dinner real quick? Is that fine? Can we take a second? Like what, dude? What am I learning? It's crazy. But okay, so like, why is anything she say even vaguely close to what I'm saying? I'm like, mind blown. I must be on the right page. Um, that's really gratifying. That's like worth going to the edge of society for. Okay, I'm gonna be right back. I'm gonna grab some chicken and a vitamin, and I keep working on this. Um, AFK for a minute. And I never and I wanna wake up after the night before. But do you get me? I said, do you really get me? Yeah. Oh. I said, do you really get me? Alright, I have dinner. I have dinner and I want to listen to a music. I want to listen to a music while I eat my dinner. It's getting dark in here. Okay. Welcome. Welcome to my dinner break. I like taking breaks because they're like little memory tests. I know it looks like a lot of rice, but when I turn this over, look at what happens. There's gravy on the thing. This is curry, if you didn't know. And I'm having it with rice and some pickled ginger and cucumber. Because I love that shit. The red stuff is the ginger. And these little indescribable pucks are pickled cucumbers. Japanese style. So they're a little sweet. Very salty. And I like that because the curry's spicy. What a book. Mute bar. Second. Put on some headphones. Oh man, I was listening to Linkin Park last night on the studio monitors. I was feeling something. I was really feeling something. The dude, I swear there are like there's got to be like Final Fantasy samples in Meteora. I'm going crazy cuz I'm listening to like Don't Stay and I swear like that part where like Chester goes in, there's this synth that they use that is his name Mr. Han? That's what they call him in the songs. Mr. Han uses this synth that sounds just like the Final Fantasy like little menu select thing and you can hear it. It's like when you scroll on the menu. It's so good. God, those menus are so sexy. It's like the full blue. And then they became vibrant, which I like, but there's something like so like esoteric about like those blue menus that just like reaches into my childhood. So many positive feelings surrounding that. Alright, take a bite. Oh, listen to music. I want to listen to Everything But the Girl. Amplified Heart. This is so damn catchy. Ooh, but not before listening to EXO off of From Under the Cork Tree by Fall Out Boy. I'm trying to decide which one of these I want to add to the stream. Hold on. Look at this. Absolute treasure trove. These are awesome. I think Chihuahuas RS is like almost on brand. Utopian Cult is kind of speaking to me though. Bold, beautiful bread. Oh man, how much I want it. Team Hard. Ah, maybe Team Hard. The one I was seriously considering was click here if you want a monster cock. Cause I think that's funny, given the content of my streams. Cause you know, like, there's like detective, and then there's like Dick Hardy. So everyone's like, oh, detectives are dicks, right? And then dicks are cocks, right? So in the pursuit of knowledge, you want a monster cock because that's your dick. You want a big dick because a big dick is like an investigative attitude, you know? But maybe that's just like thinking too hard. Let's go Team Hard. We're gonna add Team Hard. Copy address. Excuse me. Where should it go? I feel like it should be like here. Like right between the cams. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I feel I need to group it though. I should put it in the cam group, right? Now I can like move this around. Team Hard. Yeah, TSM. Alright. Team Hard though. FaZe? Nah, I think you mean Team Hard. Alright. I'm gonna be right back. I'm just gonna stand up for a second to clean up my space. One sec. There was an incident. I thought I heard the door, but there was no one at the door. And I was like, what the fuck? Kind of weirded me out. It's kind of scary. Hmm. Okay. I Dude, this song is so good. Everyone's like Missing was the hit off of this album, right? But Get Me, We Walk the Same Line, Roller Coaster, and 25th of December are just like so fucking they're like that's like my top 5. I like the whole album because I have a bias towards people with singing voices like this, but it's so good. It's so good. I wish YouTube had that feature that like Twitch has where like I can play like the audio live and not have it like carry over to like the VOD track or whatever. But like it doesn't exist. Um yeah, it's just too bad. Just too bad. If it's unreleased, how do I have it? 3021. Happy healthy releases in 3021. Damn. All right. Let's go. All right. Let's go. Welcome to my newest Minecraft parody. All right, let's go. I walk around on that Bloxburg, build a ship for treasure. If a newbie try to kill me, I'ma kill him for good measure. Ooh. All right. How? What is? I'm not. What is it? Why? What is this unifying principle? Okay. We're talking about women. but she's doing so to teach us about how we learn. So she's talking about something she knows really well. Okay. Look at this. You know how much I bought this for? 24 freaking dollars. Okay, I know it's not worth $24 anymore. But it's because I'm obsessed with myself. Alright, and if you don't know the story, you may never know the story. But one of these days, I will build Bracket Zero Nashi deck. And I have like 4 more copies of that card. So eventually I'll build a bracket 2. Or like a bracket. I say bracket 3, but I mean like bracket 2.5 Nashi deck. Because game changers are expensive. These fucking shorts. Okay. Just to go on a tangent before we get into it. Clear my mind. These fucking YouTube shorts. Like, I have you here right now, so I'm just gonna say this. These fucking YouTube shorts. Where, like, they show a guy talking about bracket 3 and, like, bracket 3 deck building. And, like, the first couple words to, like, come out of his mouth are, like, bracket 3 is just about which game changers you pick. I don't even play X or Y card anymore. My brain goes to a place. Like, what the fuck do you mean building a commander deck? Me and my friends, I think one of us, like, actually, like, built a commander deck, like, once. Okay? All my EDH decks are, like, 60%, maybe even 70% bullshit that I've just had lying around, and like 30% singles that I've bought, right? We had one or two friends, right, who like built an EDH deck, right? But like this was way before brackets existed, right? So like, what are you supposed to do when you have like a bracket 3 deck, a deck that is way better than any precon, right? That has been kind of grandfathered into this system. What do you do with that deck? Like once it becomes bracket 3, right? And you want to like go out and like kick it or whatever. Are you just like expected to just like be like, well, time to change the entire constitution of my deck right here to make it bracket 3 by adding 3 game changers? Or do you just like play the system and you're just like, yeah, this is like my storm deck that goes off. This is my bracket 2 Karn deck that uses doubling cube and basalt monolith and like fucking Tron lands to go off on like turn 4 and like go infinite with like a voltaic construct and like a Karn or whatever to make like infinite mana, right? Like that's not bracket 2. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, should I just start telling people I don't run bracket 3? That makes me feel like I have a small penis. Like, no, but really, like, some of these decks don't belong in bracket 2. Like, am I supposed to just, like, play meta? Like, it's so weird. Like, I never experienced that with my group because everyone moved away. Like, to different states and shit. And we haven't played Magic since. We stopped playing Magic while we were Magic players. Because people just got tired of it or whatever. But yeah, it's like, when people start conversations with, like, bracket 3 is, like, a format where you pick 3 game changers and just kind of throw them into your deck. And I'm just thinking, like, you're talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! You're describing, like, a Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck for me. I'm, like, watching a deck profile from, like, 2015 where someone's like, and here we go. We have Solemn Warning, Mirror Force, Thunder King Ryo, 2 copies of Thunder King Ryo. Like, all of, like, the limited... Like, you open up a GOAT format deck list, and it's like... I think GOAT format's the most guilty of this, right? It's like, oh, I have Knight Assailant, Night Assailant, Sinister Serpent, Delinquent Duo, Forceful Sentry, like Dark Hole, like whatever the fuck it is. Raigeki. I don't even know if those are legal, but like you know what I mean? Like it's not doesn't feel like Magic the Gathering sensibility. They've been breaking the color pie like since like forever. They destroyed this game from the inside, but it's still like it's just like man, it still gets under my skin cuz it's my space, dude. People don't go anywhere else. The rules are still there. All right, anyways. Tangent over. Tangent has ended. Back to the book. Many of these women recognize the exploitative nature of their jobs, identifying ways they are subjected to various unnecessary humiliations and degrading encounters. This recognition may be the most salient feature in a situation where a black woman may also have good feelings about her white employer. Judith Rollins' book Between Women is a useful and insightful discussion on these relationships. Oh, interesting. Oh, my back hurts. Ooh. Ooh. Oh. How many hours are we at? 3 hours? We're at the 3 hour mark. How many pages do we have left? Okay, I'm going to make this a 2-part video. So we're going to create a new stream. And we're going to switch over to that in a second here. I hope you've enjoyed this segment so far. I know it's another long one. It's like these books, they all do this, right? You build up so much knowledge and then I talk about it, so I have to like incorporate everything until that point or else I risk losing a majority of people. Let's see. 17. Oh, I need to update the playlist, too. Live chat replay. I hate that OBS doesn't enable live chat replay by default. So annoying. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I should just stop making streams on OBS because it's like annoying that I like turn to talk to the chat. Alright, whatever. Okay, so okay. This should work. That was then and this is now. Show me what I want to see. If I go on my channel. Oh, I see the issue here. Okay, hold on. For some reason, I'm not gonna get into it. I named the streams the same thing by accident. Okay, so now I should be able to do this.